Abraham Gray, and I'm going to react to this video by Dave Ramsay. Is there such a thing as good debt?
Robert is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Hi, Robert. Welcome to the Dave Ramsay Show.
Hi, Dave. Hope you're having a good day.
I am, sir. How can we help?
Well, let me start by saying I'm a new listener, so I'm not super familiar with the baby steps.
I can hardly hear what this guy is saying. How the hell does he understand?
My question is really more revolving around the idea, is there such thing as good debt if the interest rate is low enough? Let's just say, for example, I have enough cash to pay off a substantial amount of debt, but that cash is busy with investments currently. Mm-hmm. Would it be better off to pay off some low interest debt or let the money stay with those investments and, they make money in those investments that is greater than the interest rates, I guess is a way to describe it.
And one that a lot of people have asked over the years. I used to kind of subscribe to the same thing because I'm a math nerd, and the idea that if I could borrow, if my mortgage rate is 3% and I can put money in a mutual fund and it makes me 10%, then I made a 7 spread. Why would I not do that all day long?
Sure.
That's the same kind of a thing that you're saying, right?
Correct.
Dude, just answer his question. Why are you like that? Just go answer it. Let me hear what you have to say.
Okay, so for example, I have a business in Colorado, and we own a warehouse, and so there's a very big loan against said warehouse. But the interest rate, fortunately, the coronavirus did work.
Okay, now that's exactly what I'm coming to. What I discovered, I started buying and selling real estate in my 20s, starting from nothing. I had $4 million worth. I was a millionaire when I was 26. Then I lost it all because the loans got called by the banks, and my theory of making the spread all went to kaput because I got zero out of it. I ended up bankrupt at 28. And I got the opportunity to start over, which made me question my former theories.
This guy just doesn't know how to use his debt in the right way. There's so many ways. He probably did so many things wrong. It's unbelievable.
Because my former theory didn't work. What I had left out of my theory, what most people leave out of this theory that you and I are discussing, the 3% versus the 10% mutual fund, the 7% spread appears to be there. What we leave out of that theory is risk.
Sure.
And mathematically, if you install risk into the equation, it starts to dilute or do away with the spread.
Dude, you have to take smart risks. Everything in life is a risk. When you get out of bed and walk out of your house, you risk that you can get shot. You risk that you get in a car crash. But they're smart risks that you take. In this situation, there are lots of smart choices you can make to mitigate, whatever that word is, most of your risk to where it's a smart thing to do.
In other types of investments, in sophisticated investment analysis on, for instance, an aggressive growth stock mutual fund compared to a growth and income stock mutual fund, the aggressive is much more volatile, much more risky. The traditional mutual fund, the growth and income, is much less risky, has a lower peaks and valleys if you chart it. You follow me?
Yeah.
So you would never compare a high-risk volatile fund rate of return, apples to apples, with a lower risk, less volatile return. So you might make a 10% on that growth and income, you might make 22 on that aggressive, but you don't compare them.
Dude, you're answering a question that had nothing to do with his question. You're giving answers for something totally different.
Same, because we don't compare the roulette wheel with a CD.
Sure. We
adjust for risk. And what happens in what you're discussing is we forget to adjust for risk. So I learned the hard way that risk is real, and people learned it again in 2008, and they learned it again with COVID this year, that risk is real, and that when you have debt, you are susceptible to getting your freaking head taken off.
You learned it in 2008. You learned it during COVID. First off, I know tons and tons of people that have taken out tons and tons of loans in 2008, 9, 10, all these years you're talking about, and they made astronomical amounts of money because they didn't do stupid stuff with it. It's not that risky if you're smart with what you do. The rental rates never really went down. You have to make sure that you have some sort of extra money to cover for any small amount of risk that you have. If you're smart with it, then first off, the richest people in the world are people that leverage money, people that borrow money, and people that borrow money at great interest rates. Over the last few years, we've had the lowest interest rates in the history of time. Anyone that's been able to borrow unlimited amounts of money in the last couple of years are going to be astronomically more richer in the future for many reasons.
And I agree. My question, I guess, in regard to that,
so I consequently decided to be and live debt-free as the shortest path to becoming and staying wealthy.
Yeah, well, I can't go that way to do it.
Being debt-free is not the shortest path of being wealthy. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. First off, the way to make the most amount of money is to use other people's money to make a lot of money. Now, I agree you don't want to do risky stuff, but there's only so much you can grow using your own money to do everything. You have to borrow money to make more money, especially right now when the interest rates are so low. Any single type of investment that you can make, there's plenty of safe investments you can make right now where you could just make way more than the interest rates.
There is no risk.
Yeah, exactly. Or very little. Good. There's other risks, but it's not the banks. We're not going to get foreclosed on.
Sure.
At all. Now, do I buy fewer things because of that? Yeah, because it takes more money. I don't have the,
You buy fewer things. So let's just talk about in 2008, 9, 10, what you were talking about just a second ago, that you got wiped out because you had all these loans and something happened. Now, if you're buying to fix and flip, you got to be a little bit more careful because as you're fixing and flipping and the properties go down in value, yes, you could get wiped out. But if you're doing them as buy and holds and rentals, the rental market doesn't really go down much. It very, very rarely. And usually they stays the same or consistently goes up. So if you have a lot of rentals, you should be able to sustain keeping as many properties as you have. Now, because you now are saying that you want to use your own money for everything, there's only so many properties you can buy. But what if you could leverage 20% of your money to buy 5 times as many properties? Properties over time go up. And if you could have your properties producing money by renting them or Airbnb-ing them or all kinds of other things, when the market goes down, the rents still pay everything that you need. So now instead of having 2 properties, you could have 10 properties and so on and so forth. So the way to get really rich is to have as many as possible, leverage your money to buy good investments in the least risky way.
I don't own as many buildings. I own a bunch. I own several $100 million worth of real estate nowadays, but I probably could own a couple of billion if I leveraged the same amount of equity into stuff. But then I would be up at night when COVID hits.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of having a couple $100 million, you could have billions of dollars. I mean, you just said it yourself. You would be up all night when COVID hits. Why would you be up at night? You're renting these properties. You have cash coming in. There's all kinds of ways that you could make money even when the market turns. If you just are smart and know what to do, these problems can't happen.
I'd be up at night when 2008 hits. I'd be up at night when Trump gets crossways with the Chinese. I'd be up at night worrying about how I'm going to make my freaking payments because some tenant didn't make theirs.
Yeah.
And so life is too short. The shortest path to peace in my finances, security in my finances, I might be sacrificing some return, but I doubt I really am at the end of the day.
You doubt that you're sacrificing returns at the end of the day. Do people actually watch you and take your advice and do well off it? I wouldn't take that advice.
Because adjusted for risk, I didn't really lose that much. So I live 100% debt free. So if you're sitting on some investments and you could pay off all your debts, I would pay off your debts. And then I would use the increased cash flow to begin to build some other investments and not have any debt laying around. Because with no payments, you have incredible cash flow. With no payments, you have incredible peace. And that's where I came to. Honored to have you as a new listener. Thanks for letting me discuss that.
Maybe you have incredible peace, but you don't have incredible cash flow as you should and could have. So that's totally not correct. Not know what the fuck he's talking about, though. I mean, that doesn't make any sense what he's saying. And people listen. He's someone that takes financial advice from?
Yeah, heavily. That's what he's known for. He's like the Dr. Phil of finance.
That's scary. I never listened to the guy or know the guy, but that's if you Google this. Google what's the way to make the most amount of money in a recession? Borrowing as much money as possible. That's the way you make the most amount of money. Because you could borrow money at the lowest rate, and you're borrowing it when it's worth very little. Everything he's saying doesn't make sense, but whatever. I mean, people could do good any millions of different ways. Obviously, he did good. Obviously, doing what he's doing, he has a couple $100 million worth of properties. But if he was smart and knew how to risk his money, he could, like he said, have $1 billion. You know, but you know, he's happy. He says he sleeps well at night. It's good for him. That's what he needs to sleep good at night. Then that's what he should do. You know. Thanks for watching. If you want to sleep well at night, watch Dave Ramsay. If you want to sleep very well at night, watch me. All right.
Well, miss, I guess I'll be on my way now.